अज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So we welcome everyone for today's Bhagavad Gita reading. We are reading from second chapter, verse number 23. Nayanam chindanti shastrani, nayanam dahati pavakaha, na chainam kledyanti apo, na sochati marutaha. The soul can never be cut into pieces by any weapon, nor burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind. Purport. All kinds of weapons, swords, flame weapons, rain weapons, tornado weapons, etc., are unable to kill the spirit soul. It appears that there were many kinds of weapons made of earth, water, fire, air, ether, etc., in addition to the modern weapons of fire. Even the nuclear weapons of the modern age are classified as fire weapons. But formerly, there were other weapons made of all different types of material elements. Fire weapons were counteracted by water weapons, which are now unknown to modern science. Nor do modern scientists have knowledge of tornado weapons. Nonetheless, the soul can never be cut into pieces, nor annihilated by any number of weapons, regardless of scientific devices. The Mayavadis cannot explain how the individual soul came into existence simply by ignorance and consequently became covered by the illusory energy. Nor was it ever possible to cut the individual souls from the original Supreme Soul. Rather, the individual souls are eternally separated parts of the Supreme Soul. Because they are atomic individual souls eternally, they are prone to be covered by the illusory energy, and thus they become separated from the association of the Supreme Lord. Just as the sparks of a fire, although one in quality with the fire, are prone to be extinguished when out of the fire. In the Varaha Purana, the living entities are described as separated parts and parcels of the Supreme. They eternally so, according to the Bhagavad Gita also. So even after being liberated from illusion, the living entity remains a separate identity, as is evident from the teachings of the Lord to Arjuna. Arjuna became liberated by the knowledge received from Krishna, but he never became one with Krishna. Hare Krishna. So the first part of the paragraph was very important, very interesting actually, where Prabhupada was emphasizing how in the past the previous generations were more advanced than generations today. Although we claim to be, or the world today claims to be, we are advanced civilization, there were weapons made up of rain, tornado weapons. Prabhupada says modern science doesn't know of this technology as of now. Even if nothing, we still have one evidence, that is the Sanskrit language. Nothing is more complicated and more advanced than Sanskrit. English is a very, very simple language. Text number 24. Achedyoyam adhayoyam akledyo shoshaevacha nitya sarvagata sanam achaloyam sanatanaha. So all these verses, Krishna is speaking about the features of the soul. Now Krishna says the individual soul is unbreakable, insoluble, and can neither be burnt nor dry. It is everlasting, present everywhere, unchangeable, immovable, and eternally the same. Purport. All these qualifications of the atomic soul definitely prove that individual soul is eternally the atomic particle of the spirit whole, and it remains the same atom internally without change. The theory of monism is very difficult to apply in this case, because the individual soul is never expected to become one homogeneously. After liberation from material contamination, the atomic soul may prefer to remain as a spiritual spark in the effulgent rays of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But the intelligent souls enter into the spiritual planets to associate with the personality of Godhead. The word Sarvagata, all pervading, is significant because there is no doubt that living entities are all over God's creation. They live on the land, in the water, in the air, within the earth, and even within fire. The belief that they are sterilized in fire is not acceptable because it is clearly stated here the soul cannot be burned by fire, which means the living entities can exist on the sun also, which means they have a different body. Therefore, there is no doubt that the living entities also in the sun planet with suitable bodies to live there. If the sun globe is uninhabited, then the word Sarvagata, living everywhere, becomes meaningless. So, text number 24, the individual soul is unbreakable, insoluble, can neither be burnt or dried, is everlasting, ever present. Text number 25, again the further features are discussed. Avyakto yam achintyo yam avikaryo yam uchyate tasmadevam viditvainam nanusochutamarhasi. Avyakto, invisible, achintyo, inconceivable, and avikaryo, immutable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body. Purport. As described previously, the magnitude of the soul is so small for our material calculation that it cannot be seen even by the most powerful microscope. Therefore, he is invisible. As far as the soul's existence is covered, no one can establish his existence experimentally beyond the proof of Shruti, Vedic version. We have to accept this truth because there is no other source of understanding the existence of the soul, although it is a fact by perception. There are many things we have to accept solely on grounds of superior authority. No one can deny the existence of his father based upon the authority of his mother. There is no source of understanding the identity of the father except by the authority of the mother. Similarly, there is no source of understanding the soul except by studying the Vedas. In other words, the soul is inconceivable by human experimental knowledge. The soul is consciousness and conscious. That also is the statement of the Vedas, and we have to accept that. Unlike the bodily changes, there is no change in the soul. As eternally unchangeable, the soul remains atomic in comparison to the infinite Supreme Soul. The Supreme Soul is infinite, and the atomic soul is infinitesimal. Therefore, the infinitesimal soul, being unchangeable, can never become equal to the infinite soul or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This concept is repeated in the Vedas in different ways just to confirm the stability of the conception of the soul. Repetition of something is necessary in order that we understand the matter thoroughly without error. Soul is avyakto, invisible, achintyo, inconceivable, avikaryo, immutable. Therefore, before the person reads Bhagavad Gita, he considers himself to be VIP. Very, very important person. Yes, everyone thought I'm the spatial living entity. And after Bhagavad Gita also, again he considers himself to be very VIP. Earlier he was thinking VIP, but after reading Bhagavad Gita, he considers himself to be VVIP. Very, very insignificant person. That is what is mentioned in this purport. Infinitesimal in front of the Supreme Lord. Text number 26. Atachainam nityajatam nityam vamanase mritam tatapi tvam mahavaho nainam sochataharasi. If, however, you think there's a soul or the symptoms of life will always be born and die forever, you still have no reason to lament, O mighty armed. Purport. So Krishna is saying, even if you think, will always be born, die, there is no reason to lament actually, even if you think that happens to the soul. Purport. There is always a class of philosophers, almost akin to the Buddhists, who do not believe in the separate existence of the soul beyond the body. When Lord Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita, it appears as such philosophers existed, and they were known as Lokayatikas and Vaibhasikas. Such philosophers maintain that life symptoms take place at certain mature condition of material combination. The modern material scientists and material philosophers also think similarly. Mixing of chemicals, and at a certain point of time, life came into existence. According to them, the body is a combination of physical elements, and at a certain stage, the life symptoms develop by interaction of the physical and chemical elements. Very infamous interview by Stephen Hawking in 1994. This is the point that he was talking about. We are nothing but merely a bundle of chemicals. And that is what led to the destruction of the society today, where if you're not happy with your partner, you chop him like a vegetable. Anyways, you're made up of chemicals. You know, this subtly affects the consciousness. You don't see the result happening immediately, but over the period of time, that's what the society has come into. Just one incident we got to know that happened of the, the person chopped off the body of his or her lover. Now there are so many incidents are coming out. I mean, and most of the reporting apparently happening from Delhi right now, so I don't know what's up with Delhi, but I'm pretty sure this is something which is widely prevalent as long as you consider yourself nothing but bundle of chemical. We are nothing but just the chemicals mixed together, and if I don't like you, I throw you away, I kick you away. That's what is happening. So all this, at a certain stage, the life symptoms develop by interaction of the physical and chemical elements. This is nothing but have destroyed the society, the social structure. The science of anthropology is based on this philosophy. Currently, many religions now becoming fashionable in America are also adhering to this philosophy, as are the nihilistic, non-devotional Buddhist sects. Even if Arjuna did not believe in the existence of the soul as in the Vaibhasika philosophy, there would still have been no cause for lamentation. No one laments the loss of certain bulk of chemicals and stops discharging his prescribed duty. On the other hand, in modern science and scientific warfare, so many tons of chemicals are wasted for achieving victory over the enemy. According to the Vaibhasika philosophy, the so-called soul or Atma vanishes along with the deterioration of the body. So in any case, whether Arjuna accepted the Vedic conclusion that there is a soul or he did not believe in the existence of the soul, he had no reason to lament. If soul exists, no reason to lament because soul cannot be killed. And if soul doesn't exist, your bundle of chemical, then do you cry for a bundle of chemical? There's no reason. So either way, there's no reason to lament. But the point is, we still lament. And this is called the irony of life. So in any case, like that is mentioned, according to this theory, since there are so many living entities generating out of matter every moment, and so many of them are being vanquished every moment, there is no need to grieve for such incidents. Right now, when we are talking, we don't know how many people are being killed in different parts of the world, forcefully and naturally. If there was no rebirth for the soul, again, Arjuna had no reason to be afraid of being affected by sinful reactions due to his killing his grandfather and teacher. If there is no rebirth, what is the meaning of sinful reactions? That's the point. But at the same time, Krishna sarcastically addressed Arjuna as Mahavaho, mighty hound, because he at least did not accept the theory of the Vaibhashikas, which leaves aside the Vedic wisdom. As a Kshatriya, Arjuna belonged to the Vedic culture, particularly Aryan civilization, and it behooved him to continue to follow its principles. So we are talking about, even if somebody if somebody thinks that a soul will always be born and die forever, again there is no cause for lamentation. However, the soul is unborn. Let's text number 27. Very beautiful verse. Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityu dhruvam janma mritasya cha tasma priharyate natam sochitam arhasi. Natam sochitam arhasi. There is no cause for lamentation. One who has taken his birth is sure to die, and after death, one is sure to take birth again. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament. We don't lament when there is a sunset, because we know that sunrise is going to happen tomorrow, which is natural course of action. Krishna is making a point. Then why do you lament for these things? Purport. One has to take birth according to one's activities of life. And after finishing one term of activities, one has to die to take birth for the next. In this way, one is going through one cycle of birth and death after another without liberation. This cycle of birth and death does not, however, support unnecessary murder, slaughter, and war. But at the same time, violence and war are inevitable factors in human society for keeping law and order. The battle of Kurukshetra, being the will of the Supreme, was an inevitable event, and to fight for the right cause is the duty of a Kshatriya. Why should he be afraid of or aggrieved at the death of his relatives, since he was discharging his proper duty? He did not deserve to break the law, thereby becoming subjected to the reactions of sinful acts of which he was so afraid. By avoiding the discharge of his proper duty, he would not be able to stop the death of his relatives, and he would be degraded due to his selection of the wrong path of action. The point Prabhupada is making, imagine you are a chief of the police of your local city or a town, and the son of your brother, let's say your nephew, has committed some severe crime. Now, as the chief of the police, are you supposed to punish? Are you supposed to perform your dharma? Yes or no? Imagine you're conducting a raid and you find the person who is stealing, or who's conducting the stealing there, has happened to be your relative, your cousin or your nephew. Would you say, oh, you're my relative? How can I catch you? How can I put you behind prison bar? You're my relative. I cannot. This is how Arjuna was talking. As a police chief, you have taken a role of a police, you have taken a role of a Kshatriya. It is your duty to protect dharma. So Prabhupada is saying, how can you not? And that's what Krishna is saying. How can you not follow your dharma? And now in case if somebody has performed such a severe crime, let's say you go to a particular scene and the other person begin to shoot at you. Then for your self-defense, and for the protection of the civilians, you have to shoot the person. Now you say, no, I cannot shoot you. You're my cousin, you're my brother, you're my relative. You shoot me, I'll die, I don't mind. But if I shoot you, I'll incur sinful reactions. This is how Arjuna is talking. Then Krishna is saying, Arey, if you don't shoot him, he will be the cause of destruction of the civilians, and he may cause people along with you. Second thing, please understand, first of all, it's your duty to protect the civilians because you have taken a job of a police chief. And second thing, you have to understand, he is anyway supposed to die. His death is inevitable. But if you kill him right now, you let the society move in harmony because you save the lives of many other people. That's the point of discussion. Text number 28. Avyaktadini bhutani vyakta madhyani bharata avyakta nidanani eva tatra ka paridevana. All created beings are unmanifest in the beginning, manifest in the interim state, and unmanifest again when annihilated. So what need is there for lamentation? Purport. Accepting that there are two classes of philosophers, one believing in the existence of the soul, other not, there's no cause for lamentation. Non-believers in the existence of soul are called atheists by followers of Vedic wisdom. Yet, even for argument's sake, we accept this atheistic theory, there is still no cause for lamentation. Apart from the separate existence of soul, the materialistic elements remain unmanifested before creation. From this settled state of non-manifestation comes manifestation, just as from ether, air is generated, and so forth. From the earth, many varieties of manifestations takes place. Take, for example, a big skyscraper manifested from the earth, which means all the raw material came from the earth. When it is dismantled, the manifestation becomes again unmanifested, which means goes with the earth, and remains as atoms in the ultimate stage. The law of conservation of energy remains, but in course of time, things are manifested and unmanifested. That is the difference. Then what causes therefore lamentation either in the stage of manifestation, which means when we are living in a particular body, in unmanifestation when we don't have a body. That's the point here. Somehow or other, even in the unmanifested stage, things are not lost, both at the beginning and the end. Oh, by the way, very interesting point. You know about the principle of law of conservation. Prabhupada just mentioned about it. Now, we are energy. Am I speaking right now? That's an energy. So according to science, the law of conservation principle says the energy is never lost. Energy is always transferred. With that logic, the soul, which is the cause of the energy in a body, can never be destroyed. It is transferred from one body to another body. Just looking from the perspective of physics, pure physics. Somehow or other, even in the unmanifested stage, things are not lost, both at the beginning and at the end. All elements remain unmanifested, and only in the middle are they manifested. This does not make any real material difference. And if we accept the Vedic conclusion, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, that these material bodies are perishable in due course of time, antavantame deha, but that the soul is eternal, nityos ukta shariranaha, then we must remember always that the body is like a dress. Therefore, why lament the changing of dress? The material body has no factual existence in relation to the eternal soul. It is something like a dream. In a dream, we may think of flying in the sky or sitting on a chariot as a king. But when we wake up, we can see that we are neither in the sky nor seated on the chariot. The Vedic wisdom encourages self-realization on the basis of the non-existence of the material body. Therefore, in either case, when one believes in the existence of the soul or one does not believe in the existence of the soul, there is no cause for lamentation for loss of the body. If you believe, this is the concluding verse here, if you believe in the existence of the soul, then which means you have to believe according to what Vedic wisdom says. The soul cannot be killed, cannot be dried, cannot be burnt, etc., etc. And somebody says, no, 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 I reject Vedic conclusion. I believe the modern way of thinking, the soul does not exist. We are nothing but a bundle of chemicals. Well, why do you cry for a bundle of chemicals? Before this life, you were a bundle of chemical. After that, you become a bundle of chemical. Unmanifest, manifest, unmanifest. So why do you cry for it? And text number 29. Asharyavat pashyati kashyadenam asharyavat vadati tateva chanya asharyavat chainam annishnoti shrutavapinam vedana chaiva kashyat. Asharya, astonishment. Some look on the soul as amazing, some describe him as amazing, some hear of him as amazing, while others, even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all. Which category do we fall into? Which category do you think we all fall into? Some look on the soul as amazing. So how many of you think soul is amazing? Some describe him as amazing. How many of you think, oh, Krishna is describing as amazing? And some hear of his as amazing, and you are amazed. And while after all this, still fellow cannot understand. That is Kali Yuga Prani. Okay, purport. Since Gita Upanishad is largely based on the principles of Upanishads, it is not surprising to also find this passage in the Katha Upanishad. The fact that the atomic soul is in the body of a gigantic animal, in the body of a gigantic banyan tree, and also in the microscopic germs, millions and billions of which occupy only an inch of space, is certainly very amazing. A little ant also has a soul, and huge 120 pound or 180 pound living entity. I'm not talking about elephant, I'm talking about human being who eats too much burgers. He becomes that size. Now he also has that living entity soul. And what to speak of elephant? Same. Man with the poor fund of knowledge, men who are not austere, cannot understand the wonders of the individual atomic part of spirit, even though it is explained by the greatest authority of knowledge, who imparted lessons even to Brahma, the first living entity in the universe. Owing to a gross material conception of things, most men in this age cannot imagine how such a small particle can become both so great and so small. So men look at the soul proper as wonderful either by constitution or by description. Illusioned by the material energy, people are so engrossed in subject matters for sense gratification that they have very little time to understand the question of self-understanding. Even though it is a fact that without the self-understanding, all activities result in ultimate defeat in the struggle for existence. Which means, without having an understanding of self, whatever we do, everything is wasted or taken away at the time of death. You may have triple PhD, you may be owner of 5 companies, but when you take birth next life, when you get a next body, your parents are going to send you to pre-KG, kindergarten. You cannot cry, hey, don't you know I was the owner of Microsoft in previous life? And I had double PhD? And they'll slap you. You little boy, very naughty. You don't know even your name, and you're talking like this? So all your efforts are wasted. So if you don't have self-realization, if you don't understand the self, Prabhupada is making a point, there's an ultimate defeat in the struggle for the existence. Perhaps they have no idea that one must think of the soul and make a solution to the material miseries. And why people cannot think of the soul and cannot understand the subject matter? Because their mind has been stolen by sense gratification. Next paragraph. What are the differences in souls? Some people who are inclined to hear about the soul may be attending lectures and good association, but sometimes owing to ignorance, they are misguided by acceptance of the super soul and atomic soul as one. You are Narayan, I am Narayan. This kind of sound, this Narayan concept is, in the college days, whenever any new girl will come, the boys will say, Teri bhabhi aa gayi. So we are Narayan. This whole concept. Remember the college life, the people who were there? So this is nothing but a mere exploitation of Lord's energy, if you see that. Therefore, Prabhupada says, this whole Narayan concept, this Mayavadis we talk about, they are the greatest envy, they are the most envious people of the Lord, who are trying to exploit the Lord's energy. It is very difficult to find a man who perfectly understands the position of the super soul, the atomic soul, the respective function, the relationships, and all other major and minor details. And it is still more difficult to find a man who has actually derived full benefit from knowledge of the soul and who is able to describe the position of the soul in different aspects. But if somehow or other one is able to understand the subject matter of the soul, then one's life is successful. How to understand? The easiest process for understanding the subject matter of self, however, is to accept the statements of Bhagavad Gita spoken by the greatest authority, Lord Shri Krishna, without being deviated by other theories. But it also requires a great deal of penance and sacrifice, either in this life or in the previous ones, before one is able to accept Krishna as a supreme personality of Godhead. Krishna can, however, be known as such by the causeless mercy of the pure devotee and by no other way. Very, very beautiful purport. So, how to understand the subject matter of the self? First, we have to accept the statements of Bhagavad Gita as the greatest authority. Whatever has been spoken by Krishna has to be accepted as it is. Now, how can we accept the words of Bhagavad Gita or the words of Lord Shri Krishna? You can only accept when you have performed tons of penances, austerities, and charities, either in this life or previous life, which means our heart has been purified because of performing pious activities. So this austerity, penances, and charity, we should not shy away. We should rather perform it because that purifies our consciousness. These are the way of understanding. But imagine if in previous lives we have not done any such kind of piety, then what is our hope? Then our hope is mercy of devotee, a pure devotee. And we have the mercy of pure devotee. Krishna spoke this wisdom 5,000 years ago, and through the writing of Srila Prabhupada, we get to understand the nectarian message, which has become far more relishable for us, which before Srila Prabhupada's writing would not have been. We have not understood what Krishna is saying. Same Sanskrit, same words, but it is becoming relishable because it is further spoken by the pure devotee of the Lord. So here, this commentary, this Bhagavad Gita itself is the mercy of the Prabhupada by which we are able to understand the words of Bhagavad Gita. Self-evident. Text number 30, and with that we'll pause for today. Oh no, we do have time. We'll see. Dehi nityam navadhyoyam dehe sarvasya bharata tasma sarvani bhutani natam sochitam arhasi. O descendant of Bharata, he who dwells in the body can never be slain. Therefore, tasmat sarvani bhutani. Krishna concludes, you need not grieve for any living being. Purport. The Lord now concludes a chapter of instruction on the immutable spirit soul. Mutable? Immutable. Why Prabhupada is using the word immutable? Of course, Krishna also is immutable, which proves we are individuals. Individuals. And we do not produce anything. We do not produce. We are not the Malik or controller of any living entity. Like that. In describing the immortal soul in different ways, Lord Krishna establishes the soul is immortal, which means eternal, and the body is temporary. Therefore, Arjuna as a Kshatriya should not abandon his duty out of fear that his grandfather and teacher, Bhishma and Drona, will die in the battle. On the authority of Shri Krishna, one has to believe that there is a soul different from materialistic body. Not there is no such thing as soul, or that living symptoms develop at a certain stage of material maturity, resulting from the interactions of chemicals. Though the soul is immortal, violence is not encouraged, but at the time of war, it is not discouraged when there is actual need for it. That need must be justified in terms of the sanctions of the Lord and not capriciously. So verse number 11 to verse number 30 is the second section of chapter 2 where Sankhya Yoga is being discussed. By Lord Shri Krishna, the very first instruction that Krishna gives. Who is Krishna? The spiritual master of Arjuna. The very first instruction the spiritual master should teach to his student is, you are not the body but spiritual. Not that after death you will get to enjoy life. Do anything. But once you die, you'll have enjoyment. No, not that. This is cheating. This is political agenda. First instruction is to teach us we are not the body but spiritual. Now, text number 31 onwards, which we'll read it tomorrow onwards because purport is long. So now what's going to happen from 31 onwards? Now the discussion begins. Oh, I am not the body but spirit soul. So how does my tomorrow looks different than today? I had been living my life in a certain way all this while. Now you tell me I'm not the body but spirit soul. Now when Krishna says you're not the body but spirit soul, does not mean the body does not exist. Which means I have to take care of my body. But I am the soul, so I have to take care of my soul also. Until today I was taking care of my body, yes. But now I have understood I am the spirit soul, but who has been temporarily given a body. So which means I have to take care of two things now. I have to take care of the spirit soul I have to take care of the body. Taking care of the soul means taking care of the self. And taking care of the body means taking care of my possessions. Please understand this language, huh? Taking care of the self and taking care of my possessions. So the question obviously arises, how my tomorrow looks different than today? Because until today, I had been taking care only of my possessions. I was never taught how to take care of the self. But now Krishna has opened my eyes by teaching me that I have to take care of the self first, then only you can take care of the possessions properly. So the question comes, how my tomorrow looks different than today? And that will be answered verse number 31 onwards, which talks about two dharmas, swadharma and nitya dharma. Swadharma means taking care of your possession, and nitya dharma means taking care of the self. So how do we take care of this, our possessions? Oh, very nicely. We are expert in taking care of our possessions, isn't it? Anyone dare to touch my possession? How much attached we are? If our pen goes missing, if our phone goes missing, it feels like our heart had gone away. Our heart has left our body. So much an anxiety person. So taking care of possession, we need not be taught because we are expert in it. Therefore, Lord Shri Krishna focuses on Nitya Dharma. Of course, Bhagavad Gita talks about Swadharma also. I don't want to focus there because you are expert in it. Rather, you may teach me. Keep your possessions properly. You always keep looking for your possession. Where is my pen? Where is my pencil? But Nitya Dharma is how to take care of the soul, is what will be discussed ahead. But to conclude for today's discussion, what Krishna exactly want to teach us? Krishna want to tell us how to live a life in harmony. And to live a life in harmony, a balanced and holistic life where we are progressing and where our well-being is kept at the utmost priority, or where we are actually experiencing the well-being, it's only possible when we are able to perform both the duties. Take care of the self and take care of our possessions. Either of it compromised will become full of anxiety, will have sense of anxieties, fear, insecurity, and whatnot. So let's not just focus on one, focus on both aspects, and that's what Lord Shri Krishna teaches further. That we shall see tomorrow onwards. Verse number 31. Hare Krishna. With that, we pause here. On Sunday, it is good to end early, so you can have a good time on Sunday. Any questions or any comments from anyone? If you conclude for today. Hare Krishna. So we can have Darshana Arti then, who all are present